Oh, that's too bad. Okay. Maybe I had a picture of Isaac I was going to share with you just to prove to you that he was alive and well. But, okay. Probably my phone is like that. But, I wasn't here last week, so maybe y'all could fill me in what you did, what you talked about, how it went. Did you guys get through the plagues? So to speak. All right, fill me in. What did you talk about? What happened to our merry band of Hebrews and their Egyptian neighbors? Oh, say that again? Mm. Nice. Um, what stood out to you? What did you think about this week? Or what did you say? I strongly disagree, if anything. Okay, I was hoping somebody would say that. Well, what about Abraham? He bargained with God, didn't he? I think we're going to see it from Moses as well, aren't we? So talk me through that. Mm. Hmm. So do you see a difference in, say, Abraham, who said, Lord, what if there were 50 righteous people? And then he said, well, what if there was 2.5 righteous people? All right, I can't remember what number he got down to. Do you see a difference between those two examples? Yeah. Mm. Sure. And it kind of goes back to that original question that Pharaoh asked, didn't it? Who is this God of the Hebrews that I should listen to him? Um, Also, was Abraham appealing to something of God's nature or character in which Pharaoh wasn't? Yeah. 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 And I think we're going to see that again with Moses. And I think that was the point of God allowing the discussion with Abraham and Moses is drilling into who God is and what his character is. Pharaoh's trying to take from God. Well, take your people, but they can't have their animals. You know? Yeah, it's interesting. Interesting. Any other thoughts or observations on the discussion last week? Yes. Well, well, I was going to kill the firstborn today, but we can talk about locusts if you'd like. Mm. Mm.
voice in all of this, the Holy Spirit. Like every tear, all the things will all pass away. I mean, you've got to be able to see that every step of the way here, God is in charge, He's in control of things that happen, whether Pharaoh likes it or not. And then it comes with some rather difficult things to accept that I'm sure you're going to get into in a few minutes.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's all. Just kind of a rambling on about how God is in charge of things.
Yeah.
And we keep noticing that.
Yeah, it's it's something we talk about. So there's so many rabbit trails I want to go down, but I guess I'll go down here. So when I was driving out west, I like to try to figure out what's going on in the place I'm driving through, right? I want to know it. So I generally get off the well, if I can, I'll get off the main highway. And on this trip, I turned on the local radio wherever I was. So I want to hear what they're talking about. And I try to stop in places, stop in restaurants that, not chains, like local places. Where do the locals go? See what they eat, And thankfully, I have a pretty strong stomach, so I can do that. Just to note, they eat a lot of Mexican food, and they speak a lot of Spanish, too. Not surprising. But anyways, one thing I did, I listened to a lot of, something I don't do, I listen to a lot of Christian radio, because that's mainly what the radio stations are out west and in the Southwest. Yeah, it is. I think I'm a little bit too much of a stick in the mud when I start analyzing the words of the songs. But I think Aaron and I talked about this. It's like, sometimes a song can just be a good song. It doesn't actually have to be a sermon, so we can just kind of let it go, But I did notice the perspective of a lot of songs. I did hear a lot of positive things, like, oh, the songs are getting a bit better, But one thing I did notice is there's a lot of songs about God being there in the midst of trouble, that God, you are still God, even though the storm is raging and all this. And to your point, I was thinking it's good to remember that that is true, but also God is the one who sent the storm. And it was in His good purpose to send the locust. It was in His, not only is God there with you, oh God, where were you? Oh, you were there holding my hand. That's true. But God also, and God is the God who can calm the storm, but God also calls up the storm for His purposes. God brings the trouble. That from our perspective is we cry out, God, I don't know where you are in the midst of this trouble. It's good to remember. I think if your mind kind of goes, or my mind goes, kind of the arc that it goes on is, oh, that's horrifying. No, wait. That means he's in control and He has a purpose in this, and there's a reason for this. And then I calm down and find great comfort in it. But not only is God holding our hand, but He's got His finger on the button.
God sitting on a cloud, wishing and hoping and praising Himself. Things turn on
right.
Or does He have hand?
Yeah.
Does He want, like John Gershon used to say, we have a God Almighty or a God something.
Right.
It puts things in perspective, but we need to read out of the words.
Also, did you know that railroads have their own police force? They do. I mean, these guys are kitted out like Navy SEALs. I walked into one little diner, and there's a bunch of vaqueros there, little Mexican cowboys, and a couple farmers, and they're all eating breakfast together. And this guy walks in, white button-up shirt that says NBSF. It's the local railroad, it's the railroad. Got a Stetson on, plate carrier, big old Glock on his hip, AR-15 on his back, and he is the railroad bull. He rides the rails. He's employed by the railroad, and he's authorized to use force to keep the railroad safe. I didn't even know that was a job. Completely blown away. Totally random, has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but yeah. They're basically the law enforcement for the railroads and a certain amount of distance on either side of the tracks. Kicking people off, protecting life. They can use deadly force, protecting cargo, front line against terrorist attacks if someone wants to attack the railroads. It's pretty wild. Anyways, yes. And we're going to see it. And we see that with Pharaoh time after time. He is given the opportunity and the choice. And yet we know that he's going to harden his heart and choose no. And we're going to see another example of this when we get to the final plague. So what I'd like to do is, I'm just going to start by reading chapter 11. So just to preface this, we have been through the 9th plague, which was darkness, which was in some texts described as a thick darkness, a darkness in which I could not see you, you could not see me. It's something more than just the sun is covered. And to make it even more bizarre, if we remember, this is the final triad of plagues, in which Pharaoh is feeling God's wrath, but also it kind of reaches back into the second set of triads in that this darkness only affects the Egyptians. There is light upon the Israelites. So lest there be any debate about whether this was a natural phenomenon misinterpreted, explain that. So, and so Pharaoh has sent Moses off and said, you shall die if I ever have to see your face again. And Moses says, as you say. And of course, let's read chapter 11. The Lord said to Moses, yet one plague more I will bring upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. Afterward, he will let you go from here. When he lets you go, he will drive you away completely. Speak now in the hearing of the people, that they ask every man of his neighbor and every woman of her neighbor for silver and gold jewelry. And the Lord gave people in the favor of the Egyptians. Moreover, the man Moses was very great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh, servants, and in the sight of the people. So Moses said, thus says the Lord, about midnight I will go out into the midst of Egypt, and every firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die. From the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sits on the throne, even to the firstborn of the slave girl who is behind the handmill, and all the firstborn of the cattle. There shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, such as there has never been, nor ever will be again. But not a dog shall growl against any of the people of Israel. either man or beast, that you may know that the Lord makes distinction between Egypt and Israel. And all these your servants shall come down to me and bow down to me, saying, Get out, you and all the people who follow you, and after that I will go out. And he went out from Pharaoh in hot anger. Then the Lord said to Moses, Pharaoh will not listen to you, that my wonders may be multiplied in the land of Egypt. Moses and Aaron did all these wonders before Pharaoh, and the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he did not let the people go out of Israel. So, what's that?
So it just says over and over and over that God is going to cause things to happen, harden Pharaoh's heart, so he can't do something. So it doesn't sound to me like Pharaoh's. It's kind of a mysterious thing. What's going on for Pharaoh that he's being controlled and what appears to be by evil person will be this guy's manipulated. I don't want God to manipulate me like that. But I think there's mystery in some of this where we can go a very long, deep way into the workings of God, but at some point we have to understand that if man isn't responsible for his behavior, then it is true. That's not fair.
Right.
So there's a point of responsibility here with Moses, but yet God is still making things happen.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, with Pharaoh.
Yeah.
God is still making things happen. And he's doing it through Moses. Remember in the beginning we talked about how Moses is a type of Christ. It's just a wonderful story that for those of you read, everybody else does nothing. But
Yeah.
I disagree. I'm sorry, that's more preachy.
No, it's good. It's good. I'm holding back here because I have some comments I want to make, but I want to read the next section first, but I want to see what bubbles up in your mind. I will say this. You notice this is kind of a, this is a shift, right? So the pattern has been broken in how these plagues come about. We've had our first 9, and it was go to Pharaoh as he's making his oblations in the morning, go to Pharaoh in his capacity as Pharaoh in the courtroom, and then go out and do what I'm about to tell you to do. And then the pattern starts again. And that was kicked off by a summary. If we go all the way back to kind of chapter 6 through chapter 7, it was sort of an introduction, laying the groundwork for big things about to happen. And we get that again. It sort of bookends those 9 plagues, and also lets us know as the reader, we see this pattern, we're like, something even bigger is going to happen. Interesting, before the death of the firstborn, Moses instructs the people to go to their neighbors and find favor with them, ask silver and gold jewelry. And the Egyptian people, even the courtroom of Pharaoh, seemed to be predisposed in an awe-inspiring way to the people of Israel. Now, there's a couple ways. There's commentators either read chapter 11 as the plague threatened, or they read it as kind of a summary of what's about to happen. So I've read some commentators where it says Moses and Aaron performed all these wonders before Pharaoh, and the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart. And they think it's kind of looking forward. They get a little confused. I think this is this is just what we read here, that chapter 11 is the plague threatened, and he's summing up what we just read in the last 9 plagues. And it's setting us up for the death of the firstborn. Maybe a minor point, but as you're reading it, the narrative kind of gets a little confused. I mean, I think we're all tainted by picture books from kids and that movie from 1956 with Charlton Heston, where they gather all these things, they go to the people after the final plague. But in reality, the people were already predisposed to, God had moved in the hearts of the Egyptians toward the Israelites prior to the death of the firstborn. And now something very interesting is going to happen. What do you know about the Passover, the first Passover? Just give me what you know. I know for some of you, and probably all of you, we could sit here for a long time, but give me some highlights. What you know of the Passover. Right, the painting of the doorpost and the lintel with blood. Right. What else? Yeah. Yep. Yep. Which is interesting, because how have the plagues fallen hitherto? They all fell on the Egyptians. Some fell on the Israelites as well. Some didn't. And how much say did the people of Israel have in that? None. Right. There's nothing they had to do. Be patient and wait on the Lord's deliverance. And in some of those plagues, God was specifically showing his people are set apart. Well, now, the gauntlet's going to get laid down for everybody. I think there's a lesson in this. Yes, God has set a people apart from himself, but you're not automatically in. Right. You can't win, can you? So God is going to give us clear instruction. He's going to give the people, all the people, clear instruction. Right? So based on what you know of the Passover, before we read this, is it fair to say that there is an opportunity he laid down for everybody? From our perspective, we could go really high level and debate God's sovereignty and human will, but I think it's kind of a moot point, because at our level here, boots on the ground, it's pretty clear we're getting instruction from God. And as far as I can tell, I have to act on that, right? I think we could agree that. We could take it really high level, but the fact of the matter is God's sovereignty has this mysterious interaction with his demands and his instructions upon our lives. We have things we have to do, and we're going to be responsible for that.
What's going to happen is stated as it's going to happen to you, it's going to happen to you guys. The conditions aren't stated yet, so there is, again, kind of similar to what you're saying. There is this interplay. This is what's going to go down.
Yeah.
But it's going to go down on these conditions. And I'm not trying to make a theological statement. It's just very interesting.
It is.
The conditions are not stated yet. At this point,
yeah, we don't know how much of these instructions the average Egyptian knows, or any of the Egyptians knows. But so let's get into that. So, chapter 12. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, "This month shall be for you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year for you. Tell all the congregation of Israel that on the 10th day of this month, every man shall take a lamb, according to their fathers' houses, a lamb for a household. And if the household is too small for a lamb, then he and his nearest neighbor shall take according to the number of persons, according to what each can eat. You shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male, a year old. You may take it from the sheep or from all the goats, and you shall keep it until the 14th day of the month. And the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill their lambs at twilight. Then they shall take some of the blood and put it on the two doorposts and the lintel of the houses in which they eat. They shall eat the flesh that night, roasted on the fire with unleavened bread, and bitter herbs they shall eat. Do not eat any of it raw or boiled in water, but roast it, its head with its legs and its inner parts. You shall let none of it remain until morning. Anything that remains until the morning you shall burn. In this manner you shall eat with your belt fastened, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and will strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast. And on all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. The blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague will befall you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. This day shall be for you a memorial day, and you shall keep it as a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. As a statute forever you shall keep it as a feast. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. On the first day you shall remove leaven from your houses. For if anyone eats what is leavened from the first day until the 7th day, that person shall be cut off from Israel. On the first day you shall hold a holy assembly, and on the 7th day a holy assembly. No work shall be done on those days, but what everyone needs to eat, that alone may be prepared by you. And you shall observe the feast of unleavened bread. For on this very day I brought your hosts out of the land of Egypt. Therefore you shall observe this day throughout your generations as a statute forever. In the first month, from the 14th day of the month at evening, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at evening. For 7 days no leavened bread is to be found in your houses. If anyone for 7 days cut off from the land, you shall eat nothing leavened and all you. Then Moses called all the elders of Israel and said to them, Go and select lambs for yourselves according to your clans, and kill the Passover lamb. Take a bunch of hyssop and dip it in blood that is in the basin, and touch the lintel and the doorposts with the blood that is in the basin. None of you shall go out of door of his house until morning, for the Lord will pass through to strike the Egyptians, and when he sees the blood on the lintel and on the two doorposts, the Lord will pass over the door and will not allow the destroyer to enter your houses to strike you. You shall observe this rite as a statute for you and for your sons forever. And when you come to the land that the Lord will give you, as he has promised, you shall keep this service. And when your children say to you, What do you mean by this service? You shall say, It is a sacrifice of the Lord's Passover. For he has passed over the houses of the people of Israel in Egypt, when he struck the Egyptians, but spared our houses. And the people bowed their heads and worshipped. Then the people of Israel went and did so, as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron. So they did. So there's the instruction. And it is given to the people of Israel. We have no word that it was disseminated among the Egyptians. Now, do you think the Egyptians, we're going to use conjecture here, do you think the Egyptians got word what was going down? Yeah. It's a fair assumption, especially based on what we read in chapter 11 or chapter 12. Chapter 11, where we saw that the people were, their hearts turned, God turned their hearts toward the Israelites. Yeah. Awkward. Yeah, I was trying to put myself in that situation. Like, yeah, I know like your brothers and your uncles and your they have beat us for generations and made us build your cities, but do you have any gold? I do think some of the Egyptians must have gotten word. There must have been conversation, especially if there is a thawing of relations here. Yeah. And you notice that the people are, he says the people of Israel, but they're not automatically in. They're not automatically going to survive this because they were the people of Israel. The blood has to be applied. The blood has to be applied. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Yes.
Dennis just says, there's a old saying that, the light bulbs came on. I think so many, as Jewish people were doing these things based on their history, I think God makes like this.
Yeah.
And just part of it all, it's just, this is fantastic. Utterly fantastic. But you'll never get how fantastic this is until the light bulbs come on.
Mm.
God starts giving you the light.
Yeah.
Like the idea of it being unleavened bread that they had to do too is very important. They didn't do that, it was cut out from Israel later. So you wonder if somebody skipped part of the instruction and just go back and right.
Hmm.
A lot of little things like fun too.
Yeah. And it was all.
Communion here. Everything that's done up there is done in reference to stuff that's happened.
Yeah.
And do this in remembrance of me, which is amazing thing. Light bulbs need to come on.
Yeah. Yeah. And is it fair to say that this was an act, this was faith on their part to put the blood on, to prepare the unleavened bread, to eat it in this way? Faith, what they knew at this point of the God of their fathers, the God who sent the plagues, the God who led them into Egypt. Faith that he was going to be the God that leads them out of Egypt. Faith that he is the one true God. I've been given, Moses and Aaron have been giving you the words of God. The time is now to get moving and act. And we'll pick up here again because there's so much more to dissect and talk about. And good discussion, guys. Great discussion. So.